Bastian, thank you so much for coming to Disrupt. I'm very excited about this conversation. Pretty sure people in the audience know you for Postmates. It's obviously, your breakthrough success. Like, did you reach the expectations that you set for yourself when you created Postmates?
Well, first of all, thanks for having me. It's great to be here. Thanks for showing up and having a listen. Well, I don't think it's very smart to try to, when you start something new, to try to like set the goal to beat whatever you did before, right? So I don't think there's any point.
Okay, so you didn't have any goal or anything like that?
When you have an idea, I think when you start the process of creating a company, you want to be. Well, ideas are very fragile when they're new, right? So I think they deserve to be approached with an open mind and not with too many goals. You really want to see where the idea takes you.
Okay, and now you're doing it again, basically creating a new startup called Tiptop. Brian mentioned what you've been up to. Do you think the world needs another trade-in program, basically?
Well, yeah, I think we do. Mostly because, see, trade-in is a very old idea, but we think it's an idea that has not been taken very seriously. And we think we can change that with a couple of ideas around the concept of trade-in that we have. The first one is that we believe that you should get paid for the item that you want to trade in right away. That means instantly, not after a couple of weeks, not after we receive the item. And we believe that if we combine that with being right where you make your new purchase on a checkout, that we can, over time, create probably the payment system that makes most things the most affordable.
Okay, so you're trying to build a new Klarna, a new PayPal?
I don't think that it necessarily has to compete with an existing payment system to make a lot of sense, mostly because it does something that no other payment system can offer.
Okay. Can you describe how the pieces fit together of Tiptop when it comes to picking up your old stuff, making sure it's in good condition, storing them, and what do you do with it after that?
Yeah. So it turns out when you buy a volume of items, the exact condition of a specific item is actually not that important. So if we receive 10,000 iPhones, we're dealing with averages when it comes to buying them and when it comes to reselling them. So we're making it very easy for you to let us know in what condition your item is in. You can drop the item off at a UPS, or you can get an Uber to pick the item up if you can't leave the house. So you don't have to wait for a box, or an envelope to arrive, which is the traditional way of doing things. And when we receive the item, we assess it, and we have a network of partners that we ultimately sell this item to.
Okay, and they are in charge of finding ways to resell it to consumers in the end?
For now, I guess that's a function that our volume is still fairly slow.
Yeah, and we have a lot of entrepreneurs in the audience. I think they want to know more about your style as an entrepreneur. When you created Tiptop, I think it was back in 2022, you raised a funding round, and at the time you said it was going to be a crypto company. Why did you give up on this idea?
Oh, it was not supposed to be a crypto company. It clearly had a crypto angle. Okay. And what we thought initially is that we could use the blockchain sort of as a ledger of record of the ownership of an item. We see when you buy an item, we had the idea we could sort of have a certificate on the chain associated to the item, which would then sort of be the ledger of truth if you want to resell the item. And we thought that was a pretty neat idea. But then I think we shifted the focus on the actual buying and selling, and not so much on the idea that I think there's certain items where it's very interesting to have sort of a ledger.
Like what, luxury watches?
Yeah,
Or
I think that's probably
cars, maybe?
yeah, that's probably a better fit, right? If you could innovate on a Carfax in that regards, I think that would be pretty cool. But I think for consumer electronics, it's not really, the value is not really that high.
Do you still have this idea in mind? Like, if Tiptop works, are you going to reintroduce this ledger idea?
I actually don't know. Yeah.
Maybe, maybe not.
Maybe not.
Brings me to my next question. With Postmates, you started with something that wasn't food delivery at first, mostly, having items delivered from point A to point B, and you've sort of pivoted to find this very successful idea, this very mainstream idea that convinced everyone that there was value in ordering food from an app and having it delivered to your home or your office. Is that your founder style, being able to pivot and to realize, okay, there's something else I need to do. I need to switch my focus to something different?
Yeah. Look, when you're a startup, there's only so many things you can do that are in your control, and clearly one of them is to keep working at an idea from every possible angle, right? I like to think that the job of a CEO, of you as a founder of a startup, is you come up with a list of hypotheses and you go through them in an order that you determine, and you do that as fast as possible, and each hypothesis should ultimately guide you down sort of a decision tree. And we wrote them down for Tiptop, and we've been exploring them. And that ultimately requires to pivot in that space. It's also the case that often when you start doing something that you learn, and you learn more about the space, and sometimes you have to feel a product, you have to see a product, you have to get feedback from people using the product. And as a good founder, then I think you're sort of like a heat-seeking missile, and you go wherever you get the clearest signal, and you try to you try to find that.
What are some of the ideas that you discarded when you started Tiptop, and you were like, this is not good enough, this is not going to make any money?
Well, the very first sort of iteration was an app that we put out that allowed you to turn the items that you have into cash easily. And the app was fairly successful, but it turns out that most people want to trade something in when they buy something new, which then ultimately led us going down the path of being integrated at the checkout. And all of these things, they sound sort of like, these are not crazy revelations that I'm sharing here, but nothing happens until you start doing something, is what I'm saying, right? So you can sit with a blank piece of paper and you write all your thoughts down, but unless you start building something, you can't evolve on that idea.
Okay. And after selling Postmates to Uber, you had plenty of options. Why did you decide to go back in the game and start a new company? Is there a better thing to do than to create things and put them in the world? Not for me, I don't think so. So maybe if I were an artist, I would make music, or I would create and paint. I don't think these are my skills. So it's incredibly exciting for me to work on ideas and products. It really is just, isn't it fun? Like, I'm paraphrasing Steve Jobs, but you look around and everything that you see around you has been created by people that are not much smarter than you and I. And you can change things, right? You can create tools or put ideas out that other people can interact with. And once you realize that, it's a phenomenal feeling, and it's very rewarding. And is your mindset different with Tiptop compared to Postmates? Do you feel as much pressure to deliver, or are you like, okay, this is my fun company?
Well, you tell yourself that you don't have any pressure, right? But look, if you're a sports team and you win a championship and you want to go at it again the next year, there is pressure, right? But I think that's part of it.
Okay, so you feel the pressure, but do you think you're able to take more risks now?
Yeah, I've been thinking about this a lot actually, and I just talked to a friend about it this weekend. It, you may be at a slight disadvantage if you create a new company after having a successful company in the past. And there was, at first it was a feeling, and I tried to figure out why, because clearly you can make an argument that you know a lot and you can use that knowledge and to make better decisions. But I actually think it's the other way around. There is a you're more innocent in a way when you don't know a lot of things, right? So now when I try to make decisions at Tiptop, I'm running through this entire process of implications that I'm aware of. And that often leads me to maybe not do something or not take a risk or be too smart. When the reality is that the more of a childlike mind you can have, that probably makes it easier, really.
Okay, but if you're less innocent, does it make you cynical?
Does it make you cynical?
Yeah, cynical in your approach with the tech industry in general and startup founding in particular?
I try not to be. Yeah.
Yeah, and when you first created Tiptop, you raised some money. Do you think it was easier because of your background, your connections maybe? Does it give you an unfair advantage?
100% easier, of course, and that adds to the pressure, right? What we did a cold start, Series A. I had a conversation with Mark Andreessen, who's a friend, who's a board member, and he said, "Look, it is somewhat unconventional, but let's just see what happens." So we didn't do the traditional way of just raising a little money, doing a seed round, and moving there, because the assumption was that I would be able to put a team together and then work on an idea or several ideas, right? The company is called Tiptop Labs, so that gives you an idea of, like, we left ourselves some room there to innovate. I don't think it gives me an unfair advantage. Maybe less competitors around this time. I would enjoy that for a while, because I had to fight in probably the most competitive consumer space in the United States for a good 10 years, So.
Yeah. In technology in general, a lot of entrepreneurs now, they like to focus on making money from day one, creating enterprise companies, maybe SaaS, vertical SaaS, horizontal SaaS, all the SaaS. You are going back to a company that has some touch points with consumers that is going to require some capital to scale as well. Why did you decide to go once again to a sort of B2B2C market and not some B2B company, for instance?
I don't know how many B2B ideas I have, but that is just a personal preference. I like ideas that are very small. So if you think about Tiptop as an idea, it really is very small. It's this idea that you should be able to trade something in when you buy something new. But it's also very audacious in a way to think that we could get away with selling things, right? And that stuff that we own can just move in and out of our homes. And there is really no clear path on how to make the company successful. These are challenges I like, and these are things that it's fun to figure out. It's like a riddle,
Do you have data about how much value you could unlock with Tiptop from everyone's goods sitting in drawers in their home?
Yeah, we created a catalog of 50,000 items that we accept right now and give you instant cash for. It's around $280 billion worth of consumer goods in U.S. households.
Just in the U.S., okay.
Yeah, it's significant. It's $1,600 plus per household. So we like to call it, there's like a bank account that you don't know you have, and hopefully we can give you access to and allow merchants to accept payments from that bank account. It's a nice analogy, yeah.
Yeah, it's like a savings account without value on top of
Yeah.
it, unless you know and you try to sell your stuff
Correct.
yourself. And you think the margins in this business, because with Postmates, one of the main questions was, is this idea going to make money in the end? Of course, it scaled like crazy.
Yeah.
But the margins were very thin. With Tiptop, are you in a low margin business again, or is it different?
I think we initially, I think the margins will be very compressed because we have to do a lot of things. We ultimately we process a payment, we buy and sell items. So there's three things we want to do with a margin. And we make money by charging merchants to be a part of the platform, and hopefully ultimately also by having a margin when we're selling these items, or maybe even reselling them, right? So it's probably going to be difficult.
Okay.
Yeah.
At least at first. Do you have some examples of merchants that are that have Tiptop as an option on their site?
Yeah. We have we have a small but steadily growing merchant base that we try to go very deep with in the integration and make sure that we deliver them meaningful volume. So we have probably the greatest Android phone is the Nothing phone. It's a beautiful company, nothing.co. You can check that out. It's a phenomenal company. In the tech space, we have a new merchant called Drone Nerds. If you're into robotics and drones, it's a really cool place to buy them from. But we also have really fun merchants like King of Christmas. So with the holidays coming up, it's a phenomenal website if you need sort of things to decorate your home with. And Big Jeff Audio, which is car audio storefront, which is really cool.
And do you think eventually big consumer electronics companies could use Tiptop, let's say Apple, for instance?
Yeah, I really think so. Apple is still using the Postmates API to deliver any product that you buy for same-day delivery from Apple now gets delivered by Uber, but it's an integration that is now live for almost 9 years. And I think Apple can use Tiptop. That would be great if I have two ideas, and Apple, arguably one of the most beloved companies in the world, is utilizing them both. Yeah.
All right. I hope they're listening. And as personally, do you invest in startups or VC funds yourself?
I do. I think it's one of the best things that you as a founder can do, especially as a successful founder, is to give back to the ecosystem. I invest with my very good friend and COO of Postmates, Vivek Patel. We have done around 40 investments in the past, and we're actually just in the process of raising our first fund. So if you're working on an idea, we'll love to hear it. The earlier the better. The fund is called YLEM, Y-L-E-M.
What is the biggest investment you've made so far? The most successful one?
Oh, I think they all have really good marks, but I can tell you one that I'm very excited about. It's a company called Zellerfeld, Z-E-L-L-E-R-F-E-L-D,
okay.
And they're 3D printing shoes. And they're doing that in a way that Nike is working with them. If you go to, like websites like the Hypebeast, and you go to the sneakerheads and you talk to them, they're crazy, because what the company basically does is allows designers to create a shoe, put them on the Zellerfeld marketplace, and you can buy them, and it circumvents the middleman. And these shoes are non-toxic. If you think about companies like Carbon, and you think about even materials like Flyknit, they're really making a shoe, making a sneaker by default is very dirty business. And 3D printing them, and the way that they're doing it, the founder Cornelius, who is German, innovated for years on the nozzle of a regular extrusion printer to have them weave a material that is very similar to Flyknit, and he can use different plastics to do that. And the first shoe that they created was very clunky and sort of stiff, the new material that they're using and the way that they're weaving this material, it feels like leather, and they can make slides and really delicate shoes. They work with Louis Vuitton, they work with Balenciaga, they did a lot of shoes for Ye. Actually, Ye wanted to buy the company at some point. I had to talk him out of it because we wanted to invest more money in it. So, and Founders Fund just did their last round. It's a phenomenal company.
Okay, sounds like you're a very hands-on approach to investing, and you've been around for a few years in the startup community, and now that you invest as well, I'm sure you've seen VC investors, how they invest, what's their strategy, and what's your view on the investment community in startups?
You mean in general?
Yeah, do you think they're efficient? Because I remember we had a conversation the other day, and you said some of them tend to be lazy sometimes.
Oh no, we have I believe in Silicon Valley specifically is a big problem with like a herd mentality, and like we're like to outsource our decision making, and a lot of people chase the same deals, and that's ultimately the reason why there is not that many. I hate to break it to everybody, not that many successful funds out there. So there are a lot of funds, but very few of them are really successful. And we believe that this is one of the reasons, right? Is if you are the fundamental problem, I believe, is that a lot of VCs tend not to listen. They try to pattern match the moment they meet you and talk to you, and they try to categorize you and put you in a specific drawer, and they go through a checklist that they have, and that's how they try to make their investments. What that means is that a lot of the most of the most remarkable companies and founders are probably overlooked by that because they look funny, or they behave funny, or they look like a toy. They don't fit any of the patterns. They're not from Stanford. But if you look at historically the companies that have been created and that are extremely successful, I'm not talking about an okay company, I'm talking about an extremely successful company, an outlier success, very few people would have invested in them at the beginning. I know this because Postmates was one of those companies, right?
At first you were struggling?
We had a very hard time raising our Series A, you know. Peter and Brian at Founders Fund ultimately did it, and the thesis was probably something along the lines of either everyone is an idiot or we're right? So sort of
so
like
we're looking for an outlier and something that was unlikely to succeed but was worth the shot, basically.
Yeah, I mean, Founders Fund sort of is on the contrarian side when it comes to that equation in general. But I think even that concept gets now used by everybody and has lost the meaning, right? Just I hear every other VC saying that they do a contrarian thinking, but I don't think it's necessarily true.
Okay, interesting. We just have a couple of more minutes. I wanted to ask you a more personal question. You grew up in Germany, correct?
That's correct.
And you chose to relocate, when was it, 15 years ago?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
Would you say that it was a good decision first? And would you give this advice again to international entrepreneurs in the audience today to do it today as well?
Yeah, look, I mean, I think people that know me, America is home. It's the greatest country in the world. And if you're an extremely talented person, or if you have great ambitions, then this is the place where you should be and where you should build your company and contribute to society.
Okay. And how do you feel about the election that is coming up just next week?
Probably just like everyone else. A little tired of all the ads and phone calls and text messages of who to vote for.
Okay, I guess there's more than that, but we'll leave it at that. Thank you so much, Bastian, for this interview.
Thank you, Romain. Thank you.
Right.
Thanks, guys.